Hello and welcome to Mr. Wilbs Science. In this video we'll be looking at what's actually included in your GCSE in biology, including the topics, what kind of questions you might be asked, and even the practicals that you will need to do as part of your GCSE. So without further ado, let's get started. Before we even get into the content, it's actually important to recognise that there are two different kinds of syllabus in GCSE biology. You have the syllabus that everyone does, known as combined science. This culminates in two 1 1/4 hour papers at the end of year 11, and each paper is worth 70 marks. And then you have the other curriculum for people that have opted to take triple science. Now this culminates in two 1 hour and 3/4 papers, and each paper is worth 100 marks because of the extra content that's included. Okay, so there's quite a bit of a difference between both, but in this video we'll go through the changes and what differences there are. Whichever syllabus you're doing, each one is split into 7 units. Okay, you have topics in cell biology, organisation, infection and response, bioenergetics, homeostasis and response, inheritance, genetics and evolution, and ecology. Each of these topics only appear in certain papers. The first 4 units, cell biology, organisation, infection and response, and bioenergetics, only appear in paper 1. Whereas homeostasis, inheritance, genetics and evolution, and ecology only appear in paper 2. In this video though, we'll do a quick run through of each of these topics and then what's included in each. The first topic you'll look at is cell biology. This covers the absolute basics of biology as a whole, which most of it you'll be able to refer back to again and again throughout the entire course. This covers content such as cell structure, microscopy, cell division, and transport in cells. And transport in cells is probably one of the most important bits of this module as well. It covers things such as diffusion, osmosis, and active transport, which are just fancy names for how particles move in and out of your cells, and thus keeping them alive. However, this topic comes up again and again throughout the rest of the GCSE, and you can constantly refer to it again and again. So if you can get this bit nailed down at the start, it's going to make your life so much easier going forward. The next unit you normally study is organisation. This is basically about how living things are, as the title says, organised. Things like cells, tissues, organs, etc. The main parts you cover though are digestion and enzymes, the circulatory system, and plant structure. But the most important part again of this module, I would say, is the stuff about enzymes. Enzymes are proteins in your body that help to break down larger molecules into smaller ones. And what you have to know about these guys is how they work, as well as the factors that can actually affect them. And the factors that affect them come up again and again, just like the transport and cell stuff. It comes up again and again throughout the rest of the content. So this is another really important bit to be able to get nailed down at the start and then continue using going forward. The third topic going through the syllabus is what's known as infection and response. This topic basically covers how your body is able to deal with diseases and also what can cause some diseases. So as part of the topic, you look at communicable diseases, ones that can be passed from person to person. You learn at how your immune system works using the white blood cells and everything else that our body has at its disposal. You look at how we discover drugs and how we use clinical trials to make sure that medicines are safe. You will also cover things about vaccines and how they work. In this topic though as well, there's also the first big chunk of triple science content. This is for you guys that have opted in to take triple science. You look at monoclonal antibodies and even how pregnancy tests work, as well as some diseases that can affect our lovely little plants out in our garden. So there's quite a lot of content in this module. It's one of the bigger, chunkier ones, but good news is it's also one of the most interesting that you will cover throughout the entire 2 years. Next down our list is a very, very short unit known as bioenergetics. It sounds terrifying, that name, but all this covers is about respiration and photosynthesis, some things you probably have already done about before you've even started going into GCSE. There are some little bits you need to know though. In terms of respiration, you need to know the differences between aerobic and anaerobic respiration, essentially with or without oxygen, but also the effects of exercise on the rate of respiration that our cells perform. In terms of photosynthesis, you need to know the word equation photosynthesis. You don't actually need to know the symbol one. Okay, it is just the word equation that you need to know, And you will also need to cover something known as limiting factors. What factors can limit the rate of photosynthesis? And this is normally done in the form of a practical as well. But that's a nice short little topic, and that actually brings us to the end of the paper 1 content. The next unit is actually start of the paper 2 topics, and if you're taking triple science, the paper 2 topics are where the bulk of the extra content is, but we'll go through it so you know what you're expected to know. So the next unit is known as homeostasis and response. This is essentially how your body keeps itself in the same conditions, in its same working conditions. Everyone will learn about the nervous system, how your body regulates its own blood sugar, and you'll even look at the effects of contraception and the menstrual cycle. But if you're taking the extra triple science, you'll also be looking at how the brain and the eye works, how your body makes sure it controls its body temperature, how your body maintains the levels of water and nitrogen, and even how some hormones in plants work, normally auxin to do with growth. This topic is quite large in compared to the others. Even if you're doing the triple science, there's lots of extra content to do, but it is really quite interesting. The penultimate topic is known as inheritance, genetics, and evolution. This is another big chunky topic. Okay, everyone covers things about sex cells, you look at inheritance, genetic engineering, selective breeding, the Human Genome Project, and even evidence of evolution. However, if you're doing the triple science content, you also look at the differences between sexual and asexual reproduction, the structure of DNA and cloning, the theory of evolution, how it came about, including Darwin's expeditions, and what speciation is. So once again, an extra chunk for triple science, but another quite interesting topic. And finally, the last unit is ecology. This is the study about ecosystems, how organisms have adapted to their environment, climate change, and even the human impacts on the environment and on the planet itself. So those things kind of go hand in hand. If you're taking triple science, there's also extra content on decomposition, environmental change, trophic levels in an ecosystem, and also food production and what is needed to produce enough food to feed nearly 8 billion people on this planet. So really, this is one of the most relevant units to today, especially with climate change happening and every impact that we're having on the environment. This is one of those topics that will probably stay with you for the rest of your life. In amongst all this content that you have to know for your entire GCSE, there are also certain practicals that you have to know how to perform. These are what's known as required practicals. For you guys doing combined science, there are 7 main practicals. You have to be able to operate a microscope, you do an experiment involving osmosis, looking at how you test for different types of food, the factors that affect enzymes, factors that affect photosynthesis, you look at reaction times of your nervous system, and sampling, normally in some terms of population distribution. Okay, most of those practicals though actually appear in paper 1. It's only the last 2, reaction times and sampling, that appear in paper 2. If you're taking triple science, there's an additional 3 practicals that you do on top of those 7. You've got culturing microorganisms, the effects of plant hormones, and even a practical on decomposition. Normally these are the bits that everyone looks forward to within their GCSE, are the required practicals because they're always a bit of fun. But be prepared in an exam, you have to be able to describe how you can change these experiments to measure something else that's related to it. So not only do you have to know how to perform the experiment, but you've also got to be able to change it. Most exam questions will ask you to analyse some results from an experiment that's already been done. Be lots of graph work normally, but most of the time people do actually enjoy getting to grips with some science and doing some of these practicals altogether. So just as a reminder, here's how all the topics are split. You've got cell biology, organisation, infection response and bioengenetics that make up paper 1, and homeostasis and response, inheritance, genetics and evolution, and ecology that make up paper 2. Remember, each exam, if you're taking combined science, is an hour and a quarter long and each paper is worth 70 marks. And if you're taking triple science, each paper is an hour and 3/4 long and worth 100 marks, just to make use of that extra content that you're doing over the year. Now, I bet you're wondering, what kind of questions do I actually get asked in an exam? And there's actually 3 types, known as AO1, AO2, and AO3. AO stands for Assessment Objective. It's just a bit of teacher jargon, so you don't need to know necessarily what that means, but it's a nice way of being able to split the types of questions in your head. So starting with AO1, these are the really nice and easy questions. They're known as demonstrate questions. Demonstrate what knowledge you have. So normally these questions would be like list, define, what is, etc. Normally 1 or 2 marks, nice and easy. And the good news is these actually make up 40% of each exam. The next type is AO2. These are application questions. Things like explain and even apply. Bit more content is needed. You have to be able to explain your answer and give a reason why. These normally make up another 40% of the exam. And finally, AO3, the questions everyone hates, the extended writing 6-mark questions. They're known as the analysed questions. Sometimes you're given a passage, sometimes you have to analyse what you already know, but normally it's a piece of extended writing, they're worth 6 marks, and the questions can start with things like evaluate and judge. Normally you would have to give 2 sides of an argument, including your own opinion, or just state how processes work. It's quite a lot to do for 6 marks, but once you can get the hang of them, they can actually turn into some of the easiest marks you can get on an exam. So if you see one of these questions, don't stress, just think about what you know and apply it to that question. And finally, everyone's favourite part of exams, the maths part. Okay, in biology, there is a little bit of maths involved. Out of the whole paper, it makes up about 10%. And there are some basic maths you need to be able to do. You need to be able to calculate ratios, about probabilities. There's lots of graph work normally, especially when talking about required practicals. And in some cases, you even need to know how to calculate the areas of basic shapes, such as triangles and squares. This more comes into play on questions about that sampling practical as part of the ecology module, and about having to work out the size of an area where this counting has happened. So there's plenty of maths to do as well, but never fear, in the future videos we'll be going through, we'll tell you how to tackle these questions in depth so you'll never have anything to worry about when it comes to maths. And that's it for the content that's in your GCSE Biology. If you've enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give a big old thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to all future videos that will be coming out covering all the topics needed to pass your GCSE in Biology. Thanks very much, and goodbye for now.